Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
All right, what's up, nerds? Welcome to the first episode of the Multiverse Report. We're recapping the week's nerdy news from Tatooine to the Phantom Zone and everywhere in between. I am one of your hosts, Mike Gibson, and my other host, of course, Steve Haller. How you doing, Steve?
Oh, can't complain, Mark. Wow, brain is already fried. Send me over to the TVA. I'll sit next to Loki and see where this takes me. Yeah, doing
so you're
great.
Doing great is what you're saying.
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. Welcome to the inaugural episode. We don't even know what we're calling it at this point, so
I'm totally fine calling it issues if you are.
Works for me. We just decided
Cool.
something live, so here we
go.
go.
Right? Nice. Steve and I spent enough time talking about nerdy news that we figured we should do it publicly in some way, shape, or form. So that's what this is going to be, we think, so far. We're going to try to do it weekly or bi-weekly if our schedules get crazy, but we're just going to see what we can do here. And I'm excited to do this because I'm a lifelong nerd. Steve, are you a lifelong nerd? Would you categorize yourself as that?
Absolutely. And as weird as it sounds, for a good chunk of life, relatively closeted nerd because, when you grow up in the middle of nowhere, there's only so many options. So
Right. Yeah. I think I was like up and down with my nerddom as far as how invested I was. Obviously, when I was a kid and I was oblivious to caring about what other people thought.
Right.
Sky high levels of nerdery, and then judgment kicks in. I'm like, oh, maybe I should hide this from the public eye.
Yep.
And then you find your people a little bit, and it goes up, and then maybe you grow out of it, but then you come back, and
yeah, that sounds about right. I was that
so it's
kid
up and
that...
down, and I was just gonna say that now that every major pop culture thing in the world comes from the realm of nerdery some way or another.
Yep.
It's free. We all feel free to be open and live our lives. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, you can come back into it. I mean, I was the kid that, when we went to the local mall, and by that I mean 30 miles away in Utica, I would like sit in the Barnes and Noble and look at the whatever comics were on the little rack that went around, or like thumb through the D&D monster manual and stuff like that. And now here I am 30 years later, looking back on all the X-Men, or all the the X-Wing series from Star Wars, or the Watchmen graphic novels or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So here we've come full circle.
Yeah. Yep. Same. I feel like I always jumped in and out of like comic book reading. Like I've been back in it pretty hardcore for a long time now, but like, I don't know, like through like high school and college, it kind of like ebbed and flowed. But I would always hear something that was happening.
Yep.
That would pull me back in and be like, Jason Todd is alive? What? I have to read that. And then, pull me in for a while, and then I fade out, and then I jump back in again,
Yep.
And I don't remember what the last thing was, but whatever it was, it kept me in, and I haven't gone out. So
got the hooks back in.
Yeah. So anyway, should we get to some news?
Might as well.
We're gonna do this, like I said, on a weekly basis. So we're just kind of recap some of the stories that we felt were either the bigger stories, or the ones that we felt excited about or wanted to talk about or had something to say. Some of these may be quote unquote old if you are keeping up with all this stuff, but if not, hopefully we can shed some light on these things for you and maybe give you some perspective on them. So we're going to start off with what I thought was a pretty substantial piece of news from Dave Bautista, commenting on his future in the role of Drax the Destroyer in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, talking about his plans after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and spoiler alert, he doesn't really have any plans for Drax after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The quote that he gave just roughly a week ago, he said, there were a lot of talks for a while about a Drax and Mantis film. It was James Gunn's idea. it was such a brilliant idea, but I haven't heard a follow-up from the studio. But other than that, no. I mean, as far as my obligations, I've got Guardians 3, and that's probably going to be the end of Drax, he said. And then a few days later, he was speaking to Collider, and he said about the movies that he has done so far. He said, I really wish they would have invested more in Drax, personally, because I think Drax has more of a story to tell. I think Drax has a really interesting backstory, which they dropped the ball on. That's no dig at Marvel, which is weird that he said that because it clearly is a dig at Marvel, I think.
It's 100% a dig at Marvel.
100% a dig at Marvel. But he goes on to say, they had their slate. I know what they were focused on. People just fell so in love with the comedic side of Drax that they tapped into that, and then they tapped into it more, and then they really dug a hole into it. But we missed a huge boat on that character, and I don't think it will ever come back around. But I'm really just looking forward to finishing out this whole journey. So clearly seems like he's going to be done after Guardians 3. Steve, what do you kind of make of this? You're a huge Marvel guy. We're both big fans of the MCU, but you're a big Marvel guy overall. Kind of what do you think of this? Do you think that he's right about how do you think the MCU dropped the ball with Drax, or do you think it worked out in the best way? Like, what are your thoughts on his comments here?
I mean, it's a weird situation because with the MCU, they did kind of turn Drax into a one-trick pony. Like, he was there for the comic relief. Like, I don't have a ton of background on Guardians and Drax as a character, but there was it's a deep realm. Like, they've been running Guardian stories for God knows how long at this point, and even like Drax has been through a couple of the teams. It's not like it's just like he popped in out of nowhere. They put him in a movie and that's it. But it really can kind of be one of those things where he's 100% right in that they dropped the ball, but at the same time, for what they're doing, it did make sense. For one, I don't think they knew that Guardians was going to be the hit that it was.
Yeah, it was I mean, this has been talked about a lot, but it was definitely a shock to a lot of fans when they announced that they were doing a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because those are like C or D level characters at that time.
Right.
Now, of course, everyone knows who they are, but I tend to agree with you. I think that it is a shame. I definitely get what he is saying, because specifically the first Guardians movie, they really set up his backstory about his family getting killed and him wanting revenge. And, he gets revenge on Ronan, more or less. But then one of the last things he says in that movie is something like, now it's Thanos' turn or something. Or like he says something ominous about, now I'm going after Thanos. And despite the rest of the MCU building up to this big confrontation with Thanos, I don't recall, I mean, it's been a little bit since I've seen Endgame, but I don't recall any big moment between Drax and Thanos that would give any kind of closure to that storyline of him wanting revenge on Thanos because tangentially blaming him for the death of his family.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the fact that he was on the field when it all went down,
right?
Like, I don't think there was any major, there wasn't any shots that I can remember of a large green human-ish type being and a giant purple grimace. So,
right, I agree, and I think, of course, movies like Infinity War and Endgame, you're balancing so many characters. You all have to give them something to do, more or less, and I think it was easier for them to say, oh, Drax is funny, let's just make him funny. And he has some great moments, but a lot of them are comedic, especially in Infinity War.
Right.
And, I mean, then he disappears at the end of that movie, comes back in Endgame, and he doesn't really I don't think we see a ton of him at all towards the end of Endgame, besides getting back on the ship with Thor or whatever at the end.
Right. Yeah. When they started to tease the Asgardians of the Galaxy. But with Guardians of the Galaxy 2, like you mentioned, it was just the hits with him and Mantis. And that was pretty much his whole role.
Yeah. Yes. Which is like a different, it's seeing a different side of his character, but that to me didn't feel like a really like a through line from Guardians 1, I guess, for me. And so, yeah, I guess it's weird. I definitely get what he's saying, because they specifically set up his character to have a grudge against Thanos, and then when Thanos becomes a thing that needs to be dealt with, everybody else seems to be dealing with him firsthand. Cap, Thor, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Wanda gets a moment, but like Drax is kind of like, well, I thought that was his whole reason for being here, really.
Yeah.
So I get that. He also had said something about Drax might go on, but I'm not going to play him. Like there was another quote. He said something like that. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but and I think James Gunn responded to that on Twitter saying like, you're the only Drax for me or something like that in the MCU. Do you think there's a possibility that they would recast somebody else as Drax the Destroyer if Dave Bautista is going to be out?
See, to me, that was almost the more interesting part of the quote, because not even just for the Bautista and Drax character thing, the fact that one of the actors is open to someone else, taking on the role. Like he mentioned, he's going to be 54 when I think when Guardians 3 is wrapped, and like the fact that that they're open to somebody else taking on the role means that, for one, with all the multiverse stuff coming out, you're gonna see different iterations, or you have the opportunity to see different iterations of characters, even drastically different. Or you have a Han Solo, Alden Ehrenreich thing, where somebody else takes it on. Personally, I thought he did a great job, but there's controversy over that. So, as would happen in all of nerdery, where anything remotely controversial happens, there will be controversy.
Of course, yeah. See, I kind of go the other way, where I don't really see them recasting him. Really just for the fact because I don't think they need to.
Right.
And I think they have committed, the MCU seems to be not really modeled after, but kind of going in the way of Star Wars, where they're just going to sequelize everything. Like, we're not going to see a Star Wars reboot, I don't think, anytime soon. We're not going to see an MCU reboot anytime soon. They're going through the process of giving Tony Stark a send-off and giving Steve Rogers a send-off. Steve Rogers already has a replacement in Sam Wilson as a new Captain America. We're getting an Ironheart TV show that's going to introduce kind of a replacement-ish for Iron Man, more or less. They're growing, they're introducing these new characters. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing this more often in the coming years, like actors that maybe don't want to keep playing the role, or he mentioned he's 54, maybe he feels like he's getting too old for it or something. I feel like that's something that we might see more of, and to me it's okay if they don't get recast, because there's so many other characters that they're busy introducing. Like we just mentioned how much of a juggling act it must have been to do Infinity War and Endgame. Like, how could they possibly do that again if they don't get rid of some of the other characters that they already have, or find ways for them not to be in it? So, I think that I don't know that they would leap to recast them, but of course they can do anything they want. I don't know that there are plans for the Guardians after Volume 3. Maybe somewhere in a writer's room there are vague outlines of a plan somewhere, but I certainly haven't heard anything. So I don't know that they would recast them, but you're right. I didn't think of the multiverse thing that you mentioned either. So they could do some other spin-off of multiverse version of him or something that is played by a different actor. Or maybe there's a multiverse where he died and his family didn't die, and his son is the new Drax the Destroyer Jr. or something.
Mini Drax.
Who knows? Do you think that they would kill him off if he is publicly talking about, or maybe he knows he's going to die, and like, do you think that this quote means that he knows Drax is going to die in Guardians 3?
I mean, there's always the chance, but I don't know if the way it all came off, it seems like it's more of the speculative tone, that it wasn't like, it doesn't seem spiteful or anything like that. It's just like, I mean, I'm old. What do you want? So
and also I think, and his career has blown up since he was in Guardians. He has a small but really great role in Blade Runner 2049. He's in the new Zack Snyder Army of the Dead movie as a lead character. Like, he just might want to do other stuff. MCU, you're signing a contract with them for like 9 movies at a time or something. He might see just like greener pastures, on a different kind of career, and he just maybe doesn't want to play the same character forever. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think that if they are going to kill a character in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I think his death, Drax dying in any way, I think would be an emotional hit, without completely hobbling your Guardians of the Galaxy franchise moving forward. I can't imagine that they would kill Star-Lord Rocket and Groot are such a great pair. A lot of people
Yeah.
think Rocket's going to die, I've read, but I don't think Rocket's going to die.
Right. And
It's not a guarantee that any of them will die. I think that it's, even if he doesn't come back as Drax, they could just write him off somehow. They could give him like some kind of ending. Maybe he goes through multiverse and meets his family and decides to stay. There's so many things you could do. It's fucking comics. There's so many
he
things.
pulls a Steve Rogers and just has that one last dance with his family and just stays there.
Yeah, exactly.
So that I think that should be. I don't know. It's weird that like Guardians 3 does seem like it should tie up a lot of the loose ends that are around that franchise. And you may see those characters pop up in more of those Avengers type stories, but I think that might be the end of the main line for that.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see, because I think James Gunn has said that as of right now he does not have any plans to do any more Guardians movies.
Right.
Which just could mean that, like you said, there's multiple teams. Maybe they get a new writer-director and they assemble a new team of Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. And some of the characters we know pop out, but maybe it's a different. Look, the next time we get an Avengers movie, it's going to be a radically different lineup of Avengers. Maybe they're thinking of the same thing for the Guardians. Who knows? There's just so many possibilities that they could be going with.
Absolutely.
So
and to open it up to so many possibilities, apparently we've been gifted with the directors of Secret Invasion now.
Yes. Speaking of new directions, the Disney Plus show Secret Invasion has announced its directors, and that's interesting to me because they announced two different directors. It's a 6-episode miniseries, and they're splitting it down the middle with two different directors, 3 and 3. Thomas Besucha and Ali Salim. Thomas Besucha just recently did a movie called Let Him Go, and Salim has directed The Looming Tower on Hulu. I haven't seen either of those projects, but I think it's interesting that clearly they're going to talk to each other and figure out what each other's doing. I would think. So I'm not familiar with either of these directors, but at this point, I trust Kevin Feige's eye and the MCU to choose great talent. I don't know. I'm excited about it. The writer, it's being written by person that wrote Mr. Robot,
right?
And that was a great show. So I'm not sure. Like, Steve, what do you make of this? And what do you think this show's going to be, really?
Well, that's going to be the weird thing. Like when they said Secret Invasion, I was like, oh great, we get some Skrulls, we get to figure out what's going on. But then I thought about it, I'm like, MCU Skrulls. MCU Skrulls have been shown to be the good guys in general.
Good guys, exactly, yeah.
And that's it's going to be Secret Invasion, but I got a hunch it's not going to be what anyone expects out of, the old standard Secret Invasion, where, the Skrulls were the bad guys and invading to take over Earth. Or if it is, they may look at it from a different lens of Talos and his Skrull were a splinter group or something along those lines. So you've got Samuel L. Jackson attached to it. So Nick Fury does return. He's back from space and sitting on the Skrull ship in Paradise.
Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe the whole all 6 episodes are out on that ship, for all we know.
Who knows?
So they're invading the ship. There we go.
Yeah.
We've solved the problem. But yeah, it's going to be weird because the original Secret Invasion was kind of its own animal with like the Illuminati and that whole thing. Like, do we get the Illuminati introduced? Do we see, like, Namor won't be a thing at that point? Black Bolt is off in the ether of whatever happened with that Inhumans show.
Inhumans,
Professor X isn't a thing. So, like, Secret Invasion's coming soon. and a lot of the pieces for Secret Invasion aren't there. So
Aren't there?
they're kind of winging it.
Yeah, well, I think, well, great voice crack right there. I think that Marvel has proven themselves to be able to base a storyline on a famous comic book storyline, a movie storyline on a comic book storyline, and pull the right elements from it without adapting it completely.
Yep.
Like Civil War, Captain America: Civil War. I mean, it's vaguely similar to what happens in the comic books, but so much more happens in the comic books with different characters. And things happen in different ways. The movie gets there in different ways, basically. And same with the Infinity War and Endgame. That's based on the Infinity Gauntlet run or storyline, which is radically different than what is done in the movies.
You mean they didn't introduce death in the movies and
or Silver Surfer?
Well,
or yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Tony and Mr. Fantastic aren't in existence anyway. So Doctor Strange is literally the only member of the Illuminati that's around.
Yeah, and Professor X is an Illuminati member? Yeah, so like they haven't introduced X-Men yet. And this show's coming out next year, I think 2022. So. Yeah. So you're right. They don't have time to do all that. So we know, based on all that, we know it's going to be radically different. There's not going to be an Illuminati thing unless they choose different characters to represent those members. And they're probably going to stick to just a basic storyline about Skrulls having taken over for heroes or characters that we thought. Do you think this is a thing where they're going to reveal that somebody has been a Skrull the entire time or something? Like we're going to be like, we're going to find, I don't know, I can't even think of an example. We're going to find out, Hawkeye has been a Skrull since the first Avengers movie or something insane like that, and it will kind of undermine what we've thought about them the whole way. Do you think they're going to do something like that, or is it going to be kind of self-contained?
It's weird because it's one of those where that would be the subversion of expectations that would almost be too much of a subversion of everything that they've built up. Yeah. So I think we may see either a big character in that vein or probably like just a smaller character that may be revealed as like, oh yeah, they were a Skrull the whole time. Or maybe someone tied into the Captain Marvel like 1990s era movie there.
Sure.
Just to, I guess, forge some continuity in there. So I don't know. It's going to be very strange how they pull this off, and I guarantee they will because they always seem to. But here we are.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be one character within the show that is unexpectedly revealed to be a Skrull. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to have heavy ties to Captain Marvel. I think it's going to have ties probably to Spider-Man: Far From Home. I think the post-credit scene at the end of WandaVision is going to tie into Secret Invasion. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see more Nick Fury because I'm into the spy espionage stuff. I like that a lot. I'm not as excited about the cosmic side of things. It seems like in a lot of ways they're kind of steaming, going full speed towards cosmic stuff for certain franchises, but I don't know. I like boots on the ground action stories kind of stuff. So like if there is more like espionage, Shield, Nick Fury stuff, then I'm all in. Like no matter what, this is one of the shows that they've announced that I'm not like crazy excited about necessarily. But I also wasn't crazy excited about Loki until I saw that trailer and I was like, oh, this looks amazing. I'm one of the minority fans of the MCU that doesn't love Loki as a character. Like, I think he's fine, but I'm not like obsessed with him like the majority of people are. So I was like, Loki show, fine, I'll watch it. And the trailer, like, whoa, blew my mind.
Was that supposed to be an Owen Wilson whoa, or?
Not quite. Wow. And yeah, so we got that coming next year, and also didn't they just recently announced that the What If show is coming out in August? I think.
They did drop a date on it. Nice.
Not
or at least a month.
Date, but August they said, yeah.
Because I think that got jumbled around in the COVID-ness.
Yes, yeah, and I'm excited for that because that'll be fun. I think just seeing alternate takes of things, that'll be cool. All right, cool. So jumping from the Marvel universe over to my baby, the DC universe. we had Margot Robbie quoted this past week as talking to the studio about how much she wants to introduce the character of Poison Ivy into the DC cinematic universe or DC extended universe, whatever they're calling it, whatever we're calling it. I don't know. She was quoted as saying, I guess someone had asked her about bringing Poison Ivy in, and she responded as, "Trust me, I chew their ear off about it all the time. They must be sick of hearing it, but I'm like, Poison Ivy, come on, let's do it. I'm very keen to see a Harley Poison Ivy relationship on screen. It'd be so fun, so I'll keep pestering them. Don't worry." Steve, I know I'm more of a DC guy than you are, but I would absolutely love to see Poison Ivy reintroduced to the big screen. I think that she was done a disservice, to say the least, when she was portrayed in the Joel Schumacher cinematic masterpiece that is Batman and Robin. And she was played a few different times in live action on the Gotham show to varying degrees of success. I'm not how familiar are you with the Poison Ivy character in general? Not being a huge DC guy.
Well, the general basis of it, and then the wonderful portrayal, as you mentioned, by Uma Thurman in Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Beyond that, not a whole ton. Just the overall concept of the character, yes.
Sure.
But it's not like I've read a ton that she's involved in. So.
Right. I honestly think Uma Thurman would have been a good casting choice had it been a better movie or had it been a better script. I think she would have done a really good job because she's a great actress.
I think a lot of those choices for who they picked could have been a lot better than they were with a lot better movie.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of story problems in a couple of those movies. But obviously, she can control plants. She loves plants, toxins, poisons, things like that. She's been portrayed in a variety of different ways. More recently, she's been portrayed less of like a supervillain and more of like kind of like an eco-terrorist kind of,
okay.
or someone that just kind of, even at times, someone kind of wants to be left alone,
right.
to just like be in nature and things like that. But the coolest part about the idea of her being in a Harley Quinn film or project is that on and off within the DC comics and currently within DC comics, they are in a romantic relationship together. So I think that Warner Brothers has a big opportunity if they wanted to introduce Poison Ivy in a Harley Quinn film, whether that be like a Birds of Prey sequel or a solo Harley, or Harley and Ivy movie.
Yep.
I think they could be, I think they could get themselves a lot of clout and a lot of eyes on a project if they were introducing the first, major superhero movie that is dealt by a same-sex or, led by a same-sex couple.
Right.
And I don't know. I would love to see that. Harley, I love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I think she's one of the best things about the DC movies right now. I love Birds of Prey. I think it's a great movie. I think it's probably because I hadn't seen Margot Robbie in anything before I saw the first Suicide Squad movie, and
right.
There's a lot wrong with that movie, but her as Harley Quinn is definitely not one of those things. I think she's tremendous as that character. I loved Birds of Prey, and so I really see Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, and if they can do that with I'm bad at fan casting, so I just always kind of would rather have like an unknown person portray a role for the first time, so I can kind of like see them as that character. So I don't know. I would love to see their relationship be introduced and develop in a movie or an HBO Max show or something. There's a great version of their friendship in the Harley Quinn animated show on HBO Max. If anyone is listening or watching this that hasn't seen that show, it is 100% worth your time. It is hilarious. It is a hard R-rated animated show. Nice. And the portrayal of Poison Ivy is great and different than anything I'd seen before, but still a great portrayal of that character and Harley as well. So I I don't know. As a DC guy, this made me really excited. I'm also a big Batman guy, so if you're widening the Gotham City stable of characters, I'm gonna be all in, no matter who you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
here's hoping that they get that off the ground. I know they have a bunch of projects in development right now, and I don't think right now there's any news on like a new Birds of Prey sequel or anything like that yet. But I don't know. I would love it to manifest in some way.
Yeah.
So.
It's on the like Birds of Prey is on the list. You've got me. My HBO Max catalog and to watch list is like has been expanding every time I talk to Mike. So it's an interesting
you're like, I think
time.
I'm gonna watch some more DC stuff. What should I watch? I was like, here's 1,000 recommendations.
Right. Yeah, and they're now on my things to watch or whatever the next queue is. And Birds of Prey, I'm actually waiting on with a 3-year-old, it's like whatever time I can find with my wife to actually watch something. But I think she'd take to it as well. So I'm kind of holding off on that one. But I've binged the rest of the DC. Oh, nice. I've binged the rest of the DCEU at Mike's direction. So yeah, he's expanding my DC multiverses.
Doing my best.
I don't know, but yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, another piece of movie news, something that I'm not super familiar with, but I found very exciting. There's an Image comic called Bitter Root, which is going to be adapted into a feature-length film. It's going to be directed by Regina King. Regina King, a wonderful actress, and this will be, I think, her second time directing anything. Regina King, of course, is Emmy award-winning actress, won an Emmy for her role in the incredible Watchmen TV series.
Yep.
And she directed One Night in Miami, which is a movie that got a bunch of Oscar buzz, which I saw, and I thought it was great. So
yeah, she
definitely knows what she's doing. Yeah. Bitter Root is a book that I have not read. I've seen it on the shelves, just never gotten around to picking it up. It's about a black family that hunts monsters in 1920s New York City. And that sounds super cool to me. I always love any kind of like monster hunting period piece,
right.
I think that's super cool, and I'm excited to see it. I don't know. Have you seen anything? Have you seen One Night in Miami or anything else that she has?
Yeah, I saw
done?
One Night in Miami.
Yeah.
Of course, saw the Watchmen series. Just she's either apparently acting or directorially, she's nailing it at this point.
Yeah.
So it'll be good to see. I'm also glad that they're picking up stuff like I think Bitter was Image. So taking a lot of the like some of the indie stuff and starting to move on that between that Invincible, a bunch of other recent things that are moving more in towards that space.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, tie that into this is a book on the Harlem Renaissance and the whole like monster hunting during the Harlem Renaissance.
Right. Yeah.
It should be a very intriguing setting for this whole thing. Like it's one of those where I don't know whether I want to pick the book up first and read that, or whether I just wait for the series and then read the book, or what direction I want to tackle that in.
Yeah, I developed a habit. I don't know if it's a good habit or a bad habit of when they announce something that's based on something that I haven't read.
Yep.
It's really hard for me not to immediately go out and read and buy that graphic novel and read it. And I was like, I can't spend all my money on this because at the rate that they are announcing adaptations on things I haven't read, I will go broke if I continue to do this. So, I'm really excited about that. I think it's cool, having her, clearly been such a force in that Watchmen show. Like there's no way that I feel like there's no way that anyone was on that show didn't read the graphic novel. Now she's directing her own comic book adaptation. I feel like it's cool that she clearly respects like the genre and the medium of comic books and graphic novels enough to star in a show based on one and then adapt a separate one herself. I just think it's cool when people clearly are like, they clearly are on board with the medium and believe in the stories that are being told enough to like, adapt them into other things. I think that's cool. So I'm excited about that for sure.
Nice. I did also I happened to Google Bitterroot just, for notes. I didn't realize Ryan Coogler's tied to that project too. So
Oh, no way! I didn't
yeah,
realize that either.
he's apparently, he and his wife are producing along with King. So
Wow. Well,
yeah,
geez.
it's
Everything
there's a
he
lot
touches
of,
turns to gold. So
yeah, and I think he's on, is he on the what is it, the Wakanda TV series they announced?
yeah, and
So
Black Panther too. You
yep,
know, so
yeah, so he's all over all over anything comic related at this point.
yeah,
So
he's got a lot going on. He's a busy guy too. So
yep.
yeah, pumped. All right, just real quick, we have a rumor, straight up rumor. This has not been
A
verified by
rumor
any
that
sources.
makes Mike very, very excited.
So excited, guys. So excited. It's an unconfirmed rumor, although it has been, I guess, not confirmed, but Kevin Smith on a recent episode of Fat Man Beyond, this rumor was brought up, and he said that he had heard from somebody in the know that this was going to happen or trying to, get off the ground in some way. Excuse me.
Yep.
And the rumor is that HBO Max is interested in making new episodes of Batman the Animated Series. Steve, what is your relationship, if you have any, with Batman the Animated Series?
Definitely watched it a good bit growing up, not realizing what I was watching and how good what I was watching was. And
Yeah.
anything that involves Mark Hamill voicing the Joker, you can just sign me up for.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. This was something, Batman the Animated Series was huge for me when it was on originally when I was a kid. It really, like, I had read Batman comic books, and I loved, like, the Adam West, 1966 television show when I was a kid. I used to watch that all the time. I didn't, even though I read Batman comics, I wasn't collecting every issue or reading back issues. I was a kid, I just, when I saw one I would buy it and read it, and I wouldn't necessarily make connections or whatever. And Batman the Animated Series just opened up the whole world of Batman, and also DC Comics introduced all these new villains and characters and relationships that, like, I wasn't really aware of. And anyone that has seen it will rave about the look of it, the feel of it, the music. It was drawn on black paper just to, like, get a dark noir feel, like, so it just looks different than any other cartoon you've ever seen. It's a kid's show, but it's super, like, mature and grown up, and they're dealing with, like, just a lot of different, I don't know, grown up adult issues, kind of. It's
Right.
not just like a pow kapow biff zock,
Right.
very
It's not
different
that
than
Adam West series.
It's not your Adam West Batman series, yeah. So making new episodes of this for me is crazy exciting. I was actually I started rewatching it, once HBO Max launched, during COVID. I was like, whoa, shit, all these, well, I'm really blowing past that PG-13 rating we talked about right before we started. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, they have all these DC stuff. I'm going to watch all this stuff. And it holds up as a show. They kind of put it in a place where you can't really tell what time period it is. There's, like, modern references, but there's like blimps flying around, and they're using rotary phones, but also sometimes they're using cell phones. It's like you can't really tell when it's happening. And yeah, so any kind of return to this world, I am down for. They did reboot it they did start sequelizing it in a comic book form within the last 6 months also.
Nice.
Like Batman The Adventures Continue, I think it was called. And so I don't know, it'd be interesting if they do end up doing this, if they follow that storyline or if it's going to be separate. But anyway, if this is true, I will be absolutely over the moon. And like you said, Mark Hamill, famously voicing the Joker, Kevin Conroy does Batman, still, they're both still around. They're still doing voice work. They still sound great. They've both been those characters in the Arkham game series. If you're not familiar with the show, maybe you've played those games. Like, those are the voices of these characters in the show. And in many ways, Batman the Animated Series, a lot of people will tell you, is like the definitive interpretation of Batman and his allies and his rogues gallery. So if you're interested in expanding your Batman knowledge, but you don't have time to read 1,000 comic books, jump into Batman the Animated Series, and hopefully this rumor is true and we're getting more of it sooner than later.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I will definitely be watching that.
Yeah.
I did this did just make me realize something though. For our era of fans, in that 92 to 95 era, I ended up a Marvel guy because I was the X-Men the animated series.
Sure.
Whereas,
Yeah.
you know, and I watched some of the Batman stuff, but I like immediately went down the X-Men route, and that did. I was hearing you describe everything about like the Rogues Gallery and like expanding everything beyond just the basic core of Batman. And for me, it was the same thing with the X-Men. And it's just it's funny that like if you were in like our age bracket, you could definitely see that fork of like, okay, this is how people ended up being Marvel guys or DC guys.
Yeah, yeah. And that the same thing with I'm like Batman was on for a while, and then the X-Men one came out, and I was like,
Yep.
no way, they're doing an X-Men one too.
Yeah.
And I watched the X-Men one, and it was the same thing. It introduced new characters
Yep.
and the stuff that I wasn't aware of, but I was like, this is good, but Batman's better.
Yep.
So, you know, and you probably felt differently, but
Yeah, whatever.
should we
It's all
clear
good.
on? All right, moving out of the world of DC and Marvel and into a galaxy far, far away, we're talking Bad Batch for a little bit. A little bit of a recap of the Star Wars Clone Wars spin-off, The Bad Batch. There's been 3 episodes on Disney Plus so far. Steve, I love Star Wars, but you love Star Wars. What do you think about The Bad Batch so far?
I think they're hitting just about all the right notes for what they needed to do especially of a series that when it was announced, I was not all that hyped for.
Okay, yeah, same.
Yeah,
Good. I'm glad you said that. Same.
Of season 7, that was like, to me, that was the weakest of the 3 arcs. And it didn't grab me as much as the other 2. You know, even Ahsoka doing her thing, like with the sisters there, that like had a beginning, middle, end. Okay, like it progressed things. It fit in the story, and the Bad Batch arc seemed like it was a good standalone arc to watch. It wasn't anything that like excited me to have a spin-off series. The direction they took it though, like I'm glad they had that set up, and now especially this week where you're starting to see more of the implications of how like they're filling in the gaps. You're seeing the Bad Batch evolve while also answering a lot of questions people have had of how did a clone army turn into a conscripted human army? How did Tarkin end up working his way into all these spots? It's answering a lot of the fan questions that have been out there for eons. So they've done it. Well, for one, D. Bradley Baker has nailed everything because he's voicing the entire show basically. But they've done a great job with it from my standpoint at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think because I watched Clone Wars more recently. I think you watched it when it was on, right?
Yeah.
Or like when they announced. Yeah, I just watched it during quarantine or during COVID while we were in lockdown here. I was like, well, don't have anything else to do. Now's the time. I'm going to watch 7 seasons of Clone Wars finally. And so by then, when I watched it, I knew that Bad Batch had already been announced as a series. And so when I got to that episode, I was like, oh, this is going to be the new show. So I kind of paid attention, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I personally, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know that I've really talked to anyone else that feels this way. Me growing up on Star Wars, it was just, I spent almost 20 years of my life watching nothing but the original trilogy over and over and over again until Prequel Town came around, and then you don't meet the clone army. Doesn't come in until the second one, so 2002 or whatever. So yeah, probably about 20 years of my life, knowing in my heart that anybody dressed like a stormtrooper is a bad guy that I should not care about.
Right.
I should hate them. So prequel, you can kind of deal with it because they're faceless. There's no personalities. Clone Wars asks you to care about clone troopers and stormtroopers. I found that very hard because I was like, these are the bad guys, and maybe they're good guys now, but they're going to be the bad guys. So personally, I have a hard time caring about clone troopers.
Right.
And obviously, Clone Wars goes out of their way to make you care about certain ones. Obviously, like Rex, it's impossible to not develop like some kind of attachment to him and his relationship with Ahsoka. But still, so that again to me played into the Bad Batch thing, being like, like why is this the choice? Like, out of the storylines left open from either Clone Wars or Rebels, like, why don't you show us Ahsoka going to find Ezra or whatever,
Right.
like, why aren't you doing that show? And then, a few months later, I was like, oh, I know why they're not doing an animated version of that.
Right.
We're getting that in live action, which is awesome. So that's good.
Yep.
So, now that I know all that, that we're probably going to see live action Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine, the extension of that story, then it makes sense that they did a Bad Batch thing. But because it's hard for me to feel an attachment to those characters because I hate
the aversion to
stormtroopers.
the stormtroopers.
Like my aversion to the stormtroopers. But still, I agree, they're doing a good job, and they do look different, they have different personalities, so that like makes it easier for me. But I am way more interested in the rise of the Empire, the switching out the clones versus for human soldiers, than I am interested in the main plot line of the series. That to me is like, yes, I want this to be the entire show. Show me everything. Show me Tarkin's ascent. Like, I would love that, and I assume we're gonna get more of that. Clearly, they set it up in this third episode that's gonna be a focus. So yeah, I'm very excited about seeing where that goes and how far they get down the line, how many dots they can connect before the end of the series. Do we know how many episodes this is going to be?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
It should be, it's going to be at least, I know it's going to be at least 8. It might be like 12 or 14. I can't remember what they ordered, because I think it was more than a miniseries, so it's probably closer to a full series of TV. But
I didn't know if it was going to be like the 20-something, like the like a full season network show. Probably not. I didn't think so. Or it could have been like, because last season of Clone Wars were only like 7 episodes or whatever, so I didn't know how short it was going to be or middle of the road or whatever. But
I don't know. Whatever it is, it's going to be too short. the way this is playing out. So
I feel like regardless of my attachment to the characters, by the end of it, I'll be like, I want there to be another episode. So
you want another?
But I can see
Clone Ninja Turtles, which is effectively what I've determined that the 4 of them are.
Yeah, you're right. That's really funny. I can certainly see them, like, if this is a hit, them making this a continuing series. And D. Bradley Baker's just sitting back and letting the checks roll.
Yeah, he's basically just rolling in it.
His contract must be crazy. Like, you're voicing these 100 characters in the next 3 episodes. Yeah, crazy.
Well, and I can't even comprehend back when he signed for like the Clone Wars.
I know.
It's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. It's a good voice gig, whatever. Star Wars, sure, why not? Would he think, almost 20 years later now, he'd still be pumping stuff out?
I know.
Or Tamara Morrison, takes a shot as Jango Fett in the prequels, and here he is 20 years later, he's Boba.
I can't imagine he ever thought that would happen.
Nope.
Planning on. Yeah.
During all those con appearances in between, he definitely was not thinking, you know what? I'm going to play Boba when I'm older.
Someday I'm going to be Boba, yeah. I know. I can't imagine it. Other Star Wars news, we know that the Obi-Wan show is in the middle of production, and Ewan McGregor has talked about how much he is enjoying the filming process compared to filming the prequels. So far, I've seen a couple quotes of him saying that it's easier. He feels more comfortable with the character. I don't know that it's just, he's had Obi-Wan in his head for the last 20 years, and he understands the character more, or with retrospect comes some brilliance or whatever. I know he's talked about. Did you read? He said something about the outfit being different or being not what we would expect or something. Did you see that quote?
Yeah. I can't remember. I think they were talking about because it was always in in Star Wars fandom, there's always been the why would Kenobi wear his Jedi robes on Tatooine?
Yeah.
Like when he's trying to blend in. So I think it's probably an allusion to that of like we're gonna see Kenobi not dressed in the standard Jedi garb. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that'll
like
be
why would Luke wear his Jedi robes on Ahch-To as Rey if he's sworn off the Force and the Jedi?
Right.
Why is he wearing his robes as Rey comes up to hand him the lightsaber? Like similar kind of question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
They just really like robes, Mike. They just really like robes.
Maybe they're just super comfortable. Who knows? I don't know.
I mean, Yoda was still rocking them, so yeah, I think we're onto something here.
I think so. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Yoda's.
He's chilling in a swamp and he's
also-
still rocking the robes.
Yoda's 900 years old. He's not putting on jeans
It's
every
true.
day.
At that
for
point,
sure.
pulling pants up is that's too much.
Yeah, he's wearing a robe and nothing underneath, and that's it.
Today I learned that Yoda's Scottish. All right, we're good.
I never have thought about that until I just said it right now.
There you go.
Is Yoda wearing anything under his Jedi robe?
Yeah,
if I was
Frank,
900,
he is. He's
I
wearing
can't-
Frank Oz.
Yeah. Good point. If I was 900, I can't imagine ever getting dressed ever.
Oh no.
I'm wearing one thing until I fall over dead.
I mean, with COVID, I've learned in the past year that I really don't want to put on more than gym shorts. That's perfectly fine to me.
I know. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting integration back into the workforce when I'm supposed to put jeans on every day. Anyway, okay, we're getting towards the end here. We're going to wrap up with some trailer talk. There was two trailers that came out this week that we thought were nerdish enough to talk about. The first one we're going to talk about. We're going to save the best for last. But first, we're going to talk about a trailer for a movie that isn't tied to any, specific comic book fandom necessarily. A trailer for a movie called The Green Knight, which is based on a King Arthur story or Arthurian legend.
Yep.
About a guy that Sir Gawain makes a deal with a strange, seemingly plant-based knight of some kind. When I started watching the trailer, I was like, "Is this like Game of Thrones meets Swamp Thing? Like, what am I watching right now?" Like,
effectively, yes. Yeah.
Make some kind of deal with him. I don't want to. You should go watch the trailer if you haven't seen it. It's really cool. The cinematography looks incredible.
Yeah.
It looks like they're doing some weird stuff. Like, it seems like a lot of movie. There's giants, there's knights, there's seemingly other villains or obstacles that Sir Gawain is meeting along his quest, or dealing with along his quest. I did not know what to expect from this trailer, but I loved it. And then I showed it to my wife that night, and I was like, "Hey, you want to see something that looks cool? You probably won't want to see this movie, but it looks pretty. You want to watch it?" She's like, "Yeah, sure, let's watch it." And it ended, and she said, "Show me that again." And we watched it again. She said, "I am going to see that movie with you."
Wow.
So, yeah. So I don't know. What did you think? What did you think? I'm into it.
Yeah, I mean, the Arthurian legend in general, like Gawain. So Sir Gawain and the Green Knight was an old poem based on the Arthurian legend, and the translations to modern English, like the most famous of which is J.R.R. Tolkien, actually did a translation of it. And apparently, I've never read that. I've literally got bookshelves over there. Every other Tolkien work that could possibly think of on a bookshelf, but never, looked into that adaptation. And it was always one of those where I'm like, yeah, that'd be, I should get that. No, never mind.
Yeah,
I should read that. No, never mind. But like, apparently Gawain is like Arthur's nephew, and is like this kind of hothead trying to prove himself, and he gets himself into this pickle, and we get a movie about the pickle, with him slicing a pickle in half, apparently, by the look of the trailer. So yeah, I actually looking at the trailer originally, I was not excited going in, and then I was very excited coming out. So I'll take that as a positive.
Yeah, for sure. And it's A24, and they have done a bunch of cool movies over the last, I don't know how many years they've been a studio, but they seem to know what they're doing. And I don't know, they make a really pretty movie. Like, again, the cinematography really kind of knocked me out. It just looked great. The colors and the composition of shots just was really, incredible. So if you haven't seen the trailer for The Green Knight, go check it out. Not everything has to be based on a comic book to be good or to be, to suit your nerdy needs. But the real trailer that we're going to talk about, and I can't wait to hear what you think about this, is a trailer for, of course, we're talking about Venom, Let There Be Carnage. This is the sequel to the Venom movie that came out a couple years ago with Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, wearing the famous black symbiote goo as a costume. Was Spider-Man in that movie? No, he was not. Is he going to be in this one? No, probably not at all. I don't understand that at all. But anyway, Steve, I'm just going to cut right to it. What did you think of the trailer for Venom, Let There Be Carnage?
Well, Tom Hardy just continues his role playing the anti-hero in everything he does. But yeah, the trailer opens with Venom having breakfast with
not having
Eddie.
it,
making breakfast for Eddie.
Making breakfast, yes.
And it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, and I really don't know how to process that.
Yeah.
This movie will be one of those where I am going to see it. It may or may not be any good. It probably won't be if the first one was any indication. Mm-hmm. But the trailer hooked me a little. Like, we may have seen... We saw enough of, like, Eddie and Venom going back and forth, and the interaction with the store clerk. Like, what?
Yes.
How does all this happening? Like, it probably won't fill in any of those gaps, but I'm going to watch it to try and fill in those gaps.
Yeah, and we got to see Carnage, and Carnage looked cool, and it's cool that Carnage is going to be in a movie. I didn't see the first Venom movie in theaters. I waited until it was out on demand or whatever, and by then I had heard enough about it to know that it was not going to be anywhere close to the Venom movie that I wanted. And because initially I feel like there were rumors that Tom Holland was going to cameo in Venom for like a second to like have kind of like some kind of tie into Spider-Man. And I am a person, I know that a lot of people love the Venom movie. I thought it was fine. I feel like because by the time I saw it, I went in with the correct expectations for it. I didn't go in thinking that it was going to be something that it clearly was not. So I had fun with it, and I was like, okay, this is fun. Personally, I am one of the people that think it makes no sense to make a Venom movie without Spider-Man in it, because it doesn't even really make sense that the symbiote looks like that if it hasn't been on Spider-Man at first. Like,
if you don't have the Black Suit Saga first, you don't get that, and then
it just makes no sense at all. But that said, knowing that Venom is what it was, like Venom was a very broad movie, very comedically in some ways. Like there was a lot of like broad comedy in that movie. Unexpected by those I think that went to see it, but again, once I saw it, I was like, okay, this is what they're going for, and okay, it's fun, whatever. Knowing what the first movie was, this trailer made total sense to me. Like now that if I had not seen the first movie and I saw this trailer, I'd be like, whoa, what are they even doing? But knowing what the first movie was, this trailer was like, yep, okay, they're digging in. They know what people liked about the first movie, and they're digging in their heels to the broad comedy aspect and the wackiness of it, and they're going for it. But can they thread that needle really? Can they keep the broad comedy of Venom making breakfast and spilling coffee or whatever it is on Tom Hardy, and then turn around and make us terrified of Woody Harrelson playing Carnage at the same time? Like, because that's can be some whiplash if they're from tone wise, if they're going from like, you should be terrified and scared of this, but you should be laughing at this also. Like that's kind of a hard needle to thread sometimes. So I'll be interested to see if they can do that and how well they do that, I guess.
There was some shots of looked like some other Life Foundation symbiotes in there too, because I definitely saw one that looked like Scream at least.
Yes, I think they're definitely going to introduce more of those, and I agree with you that I think that was Scream. It just does, like, I don't know what the contracts are, but I remember reading at some point, Sony owns the character of Spider-Man. right? And just loans him to the MCU. Or Marvel makes the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies are Sony movies. They're not Disney movies. They're Sony movies. So I don't understand, if you own the character of Spider-Man, why can't you put him in your Spider-Man villain
Right.
universe? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what is stopping you from doing that? And maybe it's a contractual thing. Maybe they think it'll be too confusing. Maybe Kevin Feige's like, you loan him to us and he can't be in anything else because, Kevin Feige likes to control who he casts as his characters. And, maybe that's, I feel like it's got to be contractual. Otherwise, like, if you own the rights to him, why aren't you making a Spider-Man versus Venom movie right now? Like, why isn't that in development? Like, that would make $1 billion if you did that well. But I don't know.
Well,
Who knows?
We all saw Spider-Man 3.
Well, yeah, we did see Spider-Man 3, but you'd think, if you can get Feige involved in making your, in tangentially helping you with your Spider-Man Venom spin-off universe or whatever, then you should be gold. But I don't know. I'm talking a lot about something that they already didn't do, so it's such a waste of time to talk about it, I guess. But I don't know. I just don't understand it. But I will definitely see this movie. I'm in the bag for any kind of Spider-Man adaptation, whether or not I don't know that I'm going to like it, but there's no way I'm not seeing this movie for sure. And I'll be interested to see, like you said, they're teasing Scream. Obviously, they're introducing Carnage. I'm interested, if they're going to connect to like the Morbius vampire movie at all, if there's going to be other like hints at that, where the Sony spin-off verse is going. You forgot about Morbius, you said? Yeah.
Thankfully I did.
Yeah. You don't have a whole lot of hope for that one?
No. But I also never really liked Morbius as a character in general.
I know, yeah. Like, I think it could be a good movie. I just don't care about that character. I mean, he's not anywhere close to my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Right.
And again, just make them a bad guy in a Spider-Man movie. Like, I don't care about, like, a lot of times when they make a movie about a bad guy, I realize I don't care about this bad guy unless a good guy is going to stop them from doing what they're doing. So I don't know how much I'm going to care about Morbius either. Like, I thought the trailer looked cool. Jared Leto is a little crazy, but I think he's a good actor when he is in the right project. So it could be good, but I don't know. I'm interested to see if this Venom sequel is going to open up the Sony the Sony not Spider-Man verse at all.
Right.
I know. And Tom Hardy's a great actor, so I'll watch him, read a phone book if he does. So
that sounds about right.
But I don't know. That's all I got on Venom. Do you have any other final thoughts on Let There Be Carnage? What do you think of that title?
It's a title.
It's a weird.
That's about
title.
what
It's
I got.
Like too much.
Yeah. It's a little. Everything about this movie seems like they literally they took 20 years since the Sam Raimi movies and learned nothing.
Yeah.
It's like they could have released this literally a year after Spider-Man 3, and everyone was like, okay, cool, great, this fits, it all tracks.
Yep.
Instead, you have even like what Marvel and DC are doing on both sides, and then they're through. Sony's like, here, have this. This is our offering. We're like, okay, guys, come on, just pull it together.
Yeah, I think Woody Harrelson is a good casting choice for
that.
Carnage.
I think that's if you remember back to the original, that post-credit scene, when Eddie interviewed, Eddie went in for his first interview with him.
Yeah.
That level of crazy, and he had the Cletus hair. From the comics and that, like in the new trailer, it looks like it's a little tamed down, but like you're sitting there like he legit looks like a completely batshit insane Cletus Cassidy. Like that is Carnage.
Yeah, and I think there's an alternate universe where this movie and the first Venom movie is a hard R. Horror movie instead of a PG-13 superhero anti-hero movie, whatever. And I think in either of those versions, Woody Harrelson plays a great carnage. Like, I think he can do a great PG-13 movie, but if they were like turning up the volume a little bit, then he could tap into some Natural Born Killers, Woody Harrelson, and crush it either way. So I think, I mean, he's a great actor, so he could probably do anything. But
yeah, I mean, he was in Kingpin.
I'm gonna see it.
Yeah, no, I'll be there. Again, I don't know if I'll be there. Well, actually, if by the time that drops, theaters are a thing, I'll probably do it in a theater just to do it in a theater. But
yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm not sure what my first theatrical experience is going to be, but I'm going to give it a little bit more time.
I'm thinking maybe like Eternals-ish.
Eternals? I was thinking maybe Suicide Squad, which is like August, I think. So I'll see how things are going, because I'm really excited about Suicide Squad.
Yeah, the Gun Squad should be good. And then you've got Shang-Chi in September, and then you've got Eternals, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything
in October. A lot
of
Marvel stuff coming out in the next months. Yeah, before the end of the year. It's going to be overload almost. But a lot for you and me to talk about on future episodes of the Multiverse Report. Did we do it? Did we finish the first one? That's it, right?
I think we did. I think we made it to the end.
We did it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hey. Cool. Well, like we said, we're gonna try to do this weekly. But we're both busy guys, so if we skip a week, we'll apologize for it and we'll move on. But thank you for those who listened. Thank you if you're watching this now or later on YouTube. Actually, we don't. It'll be later for this one.
Yeah.
We don't. Our YouTube live streaming abilities are still up in the air. But thank you for listening. Let us know what you thought. And I guess that's all I got to say. I don't know. I don't have anything to plug or anything really.
Yeah, no. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you get notifications that we're going live, because we will try and do this live weekly. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it'll be in podcast form. So feel free to check us out whenever.
Yeah, and you can follow us on Twitter at Multiverse RPT. And you can follow Steve and I on Twitter as well. Our handles are in the bio of the Multiverse Report Twitter handle. So, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.